All right, welcome to our new Pick the Brain podcast. I'm Dr. Caleb Frankel, ER vet by trade and founder of Instinct. We're starting this project because over the years of building Instinct, we've been really fortunate to get to learn from some of the best hospital leaders in the field. And since they tend to self-select for Instinct tools, we want to share some of that learning. So we're trying something new to get them on for a few quick hits on all things hospital operations, leadership, ownership, industry trends, and of course, technology. And today we have a friend, Jason Canapp, on Pick the Brain podcast here. For those that don't know Jason, he is the CEO of 3 different centers in the Silicon Valley region of California: Beacon Veterinary Specialists, Animal Eye Care, and Central Veterinary Hospital. And his career in veterinary hospital leadership and ownership goes way back, which we won't get into, but he's a veteran. So Beacon Vet Specialists is really interesting because while it's a large multi-specialty sort of leading regional center, it was formed by merging 3 hospitals together, I believe. And that is a beast, Jason, and an accomplishment in its own right. I know you probably have some scars from that, but I've been a part of things like that. So you have a lot to share, and I've been fortunate to get to know Jason over the years through Instinct. And one overarching theme with you, which you probably wouldn't share about yourself, but you always are pushing the innovation envelope when it comes to leading centers in a number of ways. And we are having you on for one of those specific reasons today. So we're hoping everybody is sitting down for this. But Jason is the CEO of all of these practices, and I looked it up, from 2,450 miles as the crow flies away. So Jason lives in Orlando, Florida. And like I said, his practices are in Fremont, California, or at least in that region. So Jason, welcome.
Thanks.
I want to pick your brain on all these things today.
I'm looking forward to it, I think. Yeah. I mean, you said that 2,400 and some odd miles away, and it doesn't feel that far until you're about 3 hours into the flight. And then you start to realize, oh, this is pretty far.
Yeah, you're on your second movie flying in. So
well, yeah, I'm a clean up the desktop kind of guy on the plane.
Nice.
But you feel it on the bottom.
Well, let's get into that. My first question for you today is just tell us how you ended up in this situation. Why are you leading hospitals from so far away? And just share the journey maybe a little bit on how you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start this way. It was really kind of a we back up a little bit. We've been doing the remote work thing for well over a decade, probably maybe more like 15 years, because our current director of administration had been working remotely sort of in various developing capacities for a while. And that was actually something we kind of started experimenting with at a previous center on the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic. And she'd relocated to Orlando. And it was probably in 2015, 16 when we started kind of talking about this and saying, look, we're facing these labor constraints, especially in the Bay Area. And this wasn't really about innovation. Funny thing, innovation always, it's innovation when you look in the rearview mirror. Yeah. It's like, if it fails, it's not innovation. It was like terrible idea. When it's successful, it's innovation, right? But for us, it was really about, okay, how do we find the talent that we can't find locally or we can't afford locally? And we knew that there were veterinary technicians out there for sure who kind of were aging. I don't say aging out; they're still young, but they were physically not interested in being on the floor anymore and slinging dogs and things and being scratched and whatever. Yep. But they had lots of knowledge, and we would see them leave the industry. And sometimes, or they're not the primary breadwinner, and so then they end up moving, and you lose them that way. So this was a way for us to say, okay, how do we take advantage of that? And the first step was developing a team of veterinary technician specialists for animal eye care who were able to work remotely. They got, and we were paying basically, for the most part, prevailing wages for the Bay Area. So for them working in like Idaho, this was an increase. but they got to work from home. They got to use their skills. They got to, basically become in many ways the face of the company to clients and even referring veterinarians, because like they were the ones they were dealing with the most.
Wow.
And so it was really this labor constraint that sort of led us into that process. I ended up on the East Coast because it was really family related. It was about moving. I'm from the Baltimore, Washington metro area. Most of my family is still there. My wife's family is still there, and we have aging parents.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, how do we get close but not too close?
Yep.
I'm also a big Disney fan. And so Orlando and with Laura, our administrative director, being here already, kind of made sense to make this an administrative hub. And
Yep.
that's kind of what happened. And that was in December of 18 when that started.
Wow.
And then things just blew up from there.
Yeah. You looked like a pioneer when COVID hit. I mean, it's super interesting.
But it's like, oh, look at us all ready for it. We saw it coming. No, of course we didn't see it coming. We were just well positioned for it.
Yeah.
And we already had at that point a pretty robust team
Yep.
for animal eye care and for Beacon. We have veterinary care coordinators
Yep.
working remotely and stuff. So that we just kind of were able. We had been using Zoom for years by then.
Yep.
So for us, it was an easy pivot for us to make.
Amazing. Okay, so tell us, I know my second question here is I know you've experimented with, the technician group that isn't located on the floor, right? Let's call it run a hospital remote tools, but you've also had, I believe, a phone room from over 1,000 miles away running the hospital. So can you tell us more about these experiments and how they've gone and how they maybe worked or didn't work?
I mean, they work remarkably well, actually, and it gets better as the technology gets better. And we just changed the system that we're on from a telephone system standpoint. It's not a call center. It's not like there's like 15 people in a room or something. It's a completely disaggregated group where they're spread out all over the country, and typically we don't really even have. I mean, we do have some CSRs who work remotely, client service representatives, but primarily it's like at the very least VA level experienced sort of veterinary assistant level folks or RVTs who are actually manning the phones, which is kind of a strange thing. We do have there's 2 or 3 CSR level people, but also very experienced, and they know how to escalate things quickly to the right veterinary care coordinator, depending on what's going on. But it's not. It in retrospect, it looks like it was this. Oh, look at this great system that they schemed up, and it was kind of, but it's how innovation goes. Or again, I hate using that word, but you build for a constraint. You see a problem. You say, okay, where's the opportunity there underlying that problem? And you turn the problem on its head, and now voila, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you rinse, repeat with something else, right?
That's amazing. So how's the workflow work right now with those coordinators from afar? Can you give the listeners sort of a window into it?
I mean, this is like, I can give you like a 10,000 foot view.
Yeah.
But for me to pretend that I even know what their their like daily workflow is, it would be it'd be a lie.
This is the 2,500 mile thing, right?
It's not even that. Like, I was thinking about this, even when I was there. I mean, you think about it, and you know this. You have this experience, like with your current roles and your previous roles. Like as we speak, there are, and I don't know the actual number because I don't have
200 people.
I don't have Instinct pulled up, and I don't know how many, but I can know, like in about 30 seconds, I can know like how many inpatients there are and how many outpatients there are. I know how many appointments are being run. Animal eye care is a dual location. There is a lot of work happening all the time, 24/7. It is the thing that like just wows me all the time. That I think about like literally when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, I like it is just super impressive and moving to like know that there's these people who are actually doing all this stuff.
Yep.
And I, at any moment, you just have to trust that they know what they're doing. You hire them because you believe that they know what they're doing. In terms of like from a system standpoint, like with the VCCs, they are doing everything from talking clients through, either pre-op situations or post-op situations, explaining how to do maybe passive range of motion exercises on their post-TPLO dog, or talking about how to put eye drops in, for the medication that their cat might need. They might be answering a phone call from a veterinarian who doesn't know anything about ophthalmology, but like this VTS level person absolutely knows more than any of us will ever know, right?
Yeah.
Um, they are tasking things in the clinic. They're calling back with lab, sort of within normal limits, lab results.
Awesome.
They are keeping doctors as much as they can. It's kind of like herding cats, but trying to keep doctors on task and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing in the moment, when they're not saving patients. It is also, they're collecting data. I mean, I could go on and on. Like, there's so much that they do that is pivotal, but
Yeah.
completely invisible
Yeah.
to
That's
most
what I love
people.
about it. Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. It's like it is this system,
Yep.
but it's really this collection of just incredibly talented people who um, are working almost around the clock to do the things that would ordinarily be done, ideally ordinarily be done in the clinic,
Yep.
but don't need to be done in the clinic. And that's kind of our rule. Is we were limited not just in terms of labor, but in terms of space. So it's the rule is, if it's something that doesn't have to be done on the ground level, then we make it remote
That's amazing.
whenever possible. Because the other thing is that in a veterinary environment, what happens when you have a very skilled technician on the floor. This literally happened yesterday when one of my remote technicians, who isn't a VCC, but she's highly skilled, she visits on a regular basis. And she couldn't join one of our leadership meetings because she was like arm deep in patient care.
Yep.
Um, which is a problem in and of itself. But that's what happens. So the person who's supposed to be doing lab callbacks gets pulled for patient care. The person who's supposed to be talking to a client, or
Yep.
and so this resolves that problem, and it
Yeah.
resolves it in a way that's actually more affordable than if we were trying to do it locally.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've been following sort of, through you, some of these things that you've been doing, and that's exactly right. Like, it's a complete rethink for most hospital owners, but it has a ton of benefits. If Let me ask one more thing around this. So, if a hospital owner who you've broken their brain, because I think most hospital owners would never even think about this, right? Uh, maybe an outsourced call center, but that's it, right? Nobody would, no, I don't think anybody I know would push it to this limit. But what would you recommend if they're wanting to get started with this? Like, you're day one and you're thinking about this. Do you have any tips for them who, a big hospital like Beacon that might want to think about doing some of this, moving
Sure.
things that don't need to be done in the clinic off?
Yeah, I think that's the first step, is thinking about, look, what are the things that, like, of all the stuff that we do, what are the things that we don't need to do within the clinic? Part of
Hmm.
this has to do with scale also. I mean, you have to, um, in a oftentimes, especially in a general practice environment, you have people you have like the CSR who's also doing VA level roles. Maybe they're filling prescriptions from the pharmacy. They're doing like they're like kind of like they've got 5 different hats that they're wearing.
Yep.
It's tough to take that person and like say, okay, let's put them remote, or let's make that role remote. I think you start with the problem. You start to say, okay, like, where are we having difficulty following through on something, or making sure something's happening regularly? Um, and does this have to happen within the clinic? And if it doesn't, there's your opportunity. And the nice thing is that you have a national pool of talent.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, if you could go international too. We haven't done that, but like, you could.
Yep.
Um, and we work with we have ADP as our professional employer organization, so
Yep.
that also helps us from a scale standpoint, because we don't have to worry about navigating the payroll and tax rules and
Yep.
HR rules of each individual state. We have to be mindful of them, but we have that kind of set up. But that's something that smaller organizations already do also.
Yep.
Um, and I think also look for opportunities where maybe you have this person who you really like being part of your team who needs to move,
Yeah.
or maybe
And you get
they
to retain them.
yeah, and maybe either they need to move, or maybe they have a child, or
Yep.
there's some constraint that needs to be managed geographically, and that I think the technology is great now to be able to
Yep.
bridge that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that's a principle here. Start with the problem, right? Don't lose sight of the problem you want to solve. That's really innovation, like you said, and you don't have to be constrained by the solutions that are out there. I kind of love it. Okay, well, this is a short form podcast, so we're going to hit our last two questions and then
Okay.
let you go. I know you're busy. What is one leadership lesson you've sort of learned the hard way that's cost you time or money? I call this 2x4 advice. It's, in the journey to be a leader, there's always those 2x4s sticking out around the corner, and help some of our aspiring veterinary leaders duck maybe with one thing.
Man, I think this applies to people who are experienced too. I think it's, for me, the biggest one is mistaking silence for alignment.
Oh yeah.
And this is especially important from afar, but I think even, the drill. You walk into a clinic. I don't care how you could be hyper local. The moment you're in the clinic as the leader, behavior changes.
Yep.
You're not seeing what people really see. You're not experiencing. It just is never going to be that way. And you will often hear a lot from people who you probably should be hearing from as much, and you'll hear not enough from people who you should be hearing from. But even among leaders, I think a lot of times, because I think this is something I still have to work on, is managing my own reaction to things, because that impacts not just the way things are delivered to me, but also whether things are delivered. Right?
Yeah.
And it's tough because you want to be authentic, and you want to and you actually do need to be real, and you do need to hold people accountable. But at the same time, you need to know information.
Yeah.
And too often, I think you'll have the leader who believes that they, by insulating you from the problem, are doing their job.
Yep.
And then sometimes it's way too late to correct on something. I think that's probably the biggest.
That resonates. Yeah. It's a dopamine hit if you don't have the problem, right? And so mistaking that silence as everything's fine is like, that's the easy path, right?
Right.
But it leads you to smacking your head on a 2x4 for sure. Okay, last one. What's one underrated tool or feature or process in your hospital or your team that works, under you, that they would riot if you took it away? And I always say, besides instinct, we're not that, so.
I think I would honestly, I think I'd go back to this remote clinical support structure model. Like I said, it's invisible, but it's foundational. Yeah. And it's allowed us to expand our talent pool. It's certainly reduced the floor strain. We have doctors and clients who are relying on this daily. And it's one of those things where, it's not a physical tool.
Yep. No, but it's important.
But it's distributed our clinical support backbone. And so if I removed it tomorrow, like the floor would feel it within hours.
Yeah.
Clients and referring veterinarians would feel it immediately.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of like the day-to-day, that would be it. I think for leaders, from a leadership standpoint, this would be, I don't mean to make a plug or anything, but like, probably be Otter Notes, that we use for, like all of our meetings and things, because it has allowed everyone to be more present in the meetings themselves, or even when they're literally not present, to be able to kind of catch up on things that they missed. And it's a super useful tool for us.
Yeah.
And there's
for
a
those
lot of
who don't
different
know,
solutions out there.
Yeah, it's a general AI note-taking tool for, general population. That's awesome. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for letting us pick your brain.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man.
Appreciate you spending time with us and being on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.